Go ahead. Okay, I had two PowerPoints. Let me just get rid of one of them. Um, huh. Okay, I hope this is the right one. Always fun with Zoom. Let me see.
We're going to get one from Right a Boom.
All right. All right, here we go. So Chip, since Jim isn't here this week, I figured we'd start off with wins of the week, but let me just kind of go through. We got some wins. We'll go through wins of the week. Michelle's got quite a few things to share. And then Chip, um, fascinating what you've been doing over the past week, even since being on the plane from Right a Boom home, you got pretty busy. So we're going to kind of go through a timeline with our friends at Microsoft. I'm actually trying to get the head, one of the top people at Stanford, Chip, to join us on Monday's Right a Boom call, who is the one of the top researchers at Sentinel One, who wrote that original op-ed on about Microsoft when this first cracked. So we'll get more specifically into this whole thing for the attendees. So Chip, let's just start off to see, did you hear of any wins of the week? And does anybody have one out there that would like to share? Because I know the SaaS Alerts platform was pretty busy in the last few days. Anybody have anything? Hmm. Chip, any conversations you've had or anybody out there on the SaaS Alerts team
Um,
about specific?
yeah. So th there there were a number of wins of the week, and I should have thought about this and taken some out of our support tickets because it often happens that we get a ticket in from a partner, typically not one that's on this call, who's looking for us to confirm that they actually have an account that's compromised. We see those all the time.
Mhm.
But I don't have them off the top of my head, and I'm not going to jump into the support system at this moment. But I do want to talk about a different win of the week that happened at Right a Boom, and this is kind of a win for us, or let's call it a base hit. Um, so an unnamed vendor in the space, who was, I don't think they were an exhibitor at ROB. They might have been, but they were at our booth and they explained to us what they did. And what they effectively do is phishing training. And they are very interested in partnering with us, and having SaaS Alerts data pushed into their platform. So because they provide their own version of a secure score based upon how well their customers, end users, perform in their phishing training tests, which I thought was pretty interesting. And they were interested in talking to us about, SaaS Alerts partners that could have the SaaS Alert Secure Score data pushed directly in with the other Secure Score on the anti-phishing stuff and kind of tie additional information into their product. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm bringing it up because, as usual, I'm interested in feedback from this audience as to what they think about that kind of a notion and its value.
So basically, someone goes through a phishing simulation, Chip, and then they provide some type of scoring based on.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they provide scoring for the business and each individual, as to how they're doing, and they have it all set up in a dashboard, and people can go back and retake training and so forth. And it would be a really lightweight thing for us to do if we allowed them to integrate with us. And if you were one of their customers, and I can almost guarantee based upon their numbers that some of our team has to be, um, then you would have a SaaS Alerts Fortify score along with the anti-malware, anti-phishing training score, and they do other things beyond anti-phishing, but that's the primary piece that they do. They're training on information security in cloud usage for individual team members, and you have that all bundled together in a single dashboard, and it sounded appealing to me as an option. So Ryan, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, that would definitely be something that we would be interested in. It's been one of our struggling points with some of our integrations with which products we choose to do with spam integration. So for our two primary partners that we use for managed security awareness is Arctic Wolf's managed awareness training, and then Barracuda's Fishline. And both of those products don't necessarily have the same tie-ins back for how they report their phishing button back to their spam filters. And so we're trying to get that all in alignment. And also we're trying to keep that in alignment with the Microsoft security scoring in your guys' product. So, any more tight alignment with any one of those vendors or potentially a new vendor that could solve this would be of benefit to us.
Got it. Andy? Other Andy?
Yeah, what came up for me was when you talk about the score going one way, what if we wanted to be able to give an overall security score from user behavior perspective as well as user licensing and user configuration, and to be able to bring that together with a training piece, I think adds tremendous value to, and since we're now talking about user behavior as the primary conduit by which security breaches are occurring, to be
Yeah.
able to say, hey, I've been through this training and I did wonderfully. And by the way, I've configured the right way. I have the right rules. These are my corporate policies, and have all this come together in a very succinct summary that allows HR, allows supervisory level of staff to really hone in on keeping their group secure.
Yeah, I think what you're driving at is, what about a reverse integration where we pull their information into Fortify and display it there? And we did talk about that with them. And, we all agreed that if we're going to go down this path together, that we would present each other's data on each other's platforms, because it seems to be that would offer the most opportunity for both of our partners to make the most use of it. So,
and if you were to find a way to incorporate what mail flow looks like at a moment and potentially take action, help them to take action, that to me would be the piece de resistance. We're now dealing at real-time mail flow, and this is you can get even more there.
yep. Okay, so that's it for me, Andrew, on the win of the week front.
By the way, anecdotally, I was talking to Ryan Weeks, Chip. There's still he said there's a cyber call in the making with you and him just alone on the unanswered questions on conditional access that were in your topic in Hoover in the app. Because Ryan said it was so, obviously significant in terms of being able to, if done properly or improperly, right, the impact it would have.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I never used the Hoover app. I have a personal policy against any social media apps on my phone, so I wouldn't go near it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see a lot of people engaging with it.
Yeah, there was something close to 9,000 conversations.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Separate phone just for social apps.
All right, Michelle, you've got a lot on the plate here. Talk to us. And do you want to share anything so I can bring this down if you want to?
I don't really want to share. I'm going to share some links, which I will pop into the chat. That's about it, I think. Oh, Ben, you got to have that Discord one ready. I did forget that one. So we have two webinars this month. The first one is the SASE report webinar, where Jim is going to take a dive into this year's SASE report, which came out 6th, I think. And I did share that last week, and some emails went out. So if you haven't seen it yet, let me know. I can drop that link in here. But this is the SASE report webinar link. And that is on Tuesday, I believe, the 19th.
Any really interesting differences this year, by the way, Chip? Not to go into them, but in the SASE report versus last year?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that surprised me around some changes in the distribution of geolocation of origin of events. There was a big change and surprise in the data around which applications are generating the most OAuth access, and that one, we're gonna have to talk through, because we do present the data kind of as is without normalizing for changes in our own business. But curiously enough, we saw massive increases in the use of OAuth for education related products, as in K to 12 education related products. And it's pretty easy for me to figure out why. It's because we're growing in that market. And when you bring on a school jurisdiction, they plop in 100,000 new users, and all the kids are using the same education apps along with the teachers, you're going to see huge growth in that.
Right.
But it's something that was surprising to me in the data that people will see, and is probably going to be a head scratcher until we explain it.
Got it. Cool. All right, Michelle, moving on to Beltex.
Yes, well, all right, I'm gonna actually share this as a report again, just so you guys have it, now that I think about it.
You want me to stop sharing?
No, it's okay.
Oh.
I'm not gonna share the report, I'm just gonna share the link to it. Just to
Okay.
so people don't have to go in and go to the landing page and put all their information in. You guys are VIP, so let's see. Okay, so yeah, the next webinar we have is on the 26th of March, and that is the webinar with Beltex. And Reed and Chip will be heading that one up. So I think Reed was on a couple weeks ago, so I think you have a sense of what Beltex is, but they're going to dive into that a little bit more and find out how, SaaS Alerts partners have early access to the product. Let's see what else. So this is just a reminder for marketing materials, Discord updates. We do have a good amount of people in Discord, which I'm really psyched about because it gives me a nice place to put everything. I did just create a channel in there this week based on feedback on office hours for videos. So I know a lot of times you're looking for recordings either after the SASE call, after office hours, after a webinar. I'm going to continue to drop those recordings into that videos channel on our Discord server. So if you're looking for those, they'll be there. And then the other thing is the SaaS Security Trends one-pager. This was something in response to wanting to white label the SASE report, which we really can't do, but we want to create something that you guys can use and take back to, prospects and customers, highlighting some of these trends and why it's important to have SaaS security services. So I am working on that. I hope to have it early next week. We'll see, but it is a priority.
All right. Awesome stuff, Michelle. All right, Chip. So I'm going to set the stage here for our conversation. And if you guys recall, Chip, we probably shared this, I don't know what, a month or so ago now, that at least, right? It was on a SASE call.
I think we shared it all the way back in January. We shared this like within days after it first getting announced.
Yeah, maybe. Wow, that tells you where my head has been over the past 2 months. But and then we had we had Kelvin Tagelar on the cyber call to talk about this, who's a Microsoft MVP who gets a lot of insight, stuff that we wouldn't normally get not being an MVP. But this is what we kind of shared with you guys, I guess 2 months ago now, Chip, was that Microsoft came out, if you recall, and said, hey, we had these legacy email accounts. They were compromised by APT29, better known as Midnight Blizzard, but kind of benign, nothing to worry about here. Just some of our legal team and cybersecurity team, their old accounts were compromised, and through an OAuth, right, Chip, attack, if I recall.
Well, they weren't super specific about it in the beginning, but we eventually learned that it was probably a password spray attack, and their follow-on security blogs updated and informed us that what happened is that they had they claimed, air fingers quotes, old test tenant, and that test tenant had permission somehow into the primary Microsoft.com business domain where all their executives live and work, all their employees, and was able to traverse across tenants by some mechanism that at that time we didn't really know what the mechanism was. And then the rest of the story is exactly as you played it out. Doesn't look like it was a big deal. They targeted executives, legal, and some specific people in the C-suite, and we're looking at emails specifically to try and discover what Microsoft knew about the hacking group Midnight Blizzard. So they made it sound like it was just a recon and
Right.
almost frank, like, oh, well, what do you guys know about us? And
Right.
that's where they left it.
And
Until,
oh wait, but remember the week after, then HP. Remember HPE
yep.
with also the same group. So okay, so fast forward just the other day, and by the way, this is in many of this comes directly from Microsoft, but you can see here on the 8th, wow, this ongoing blog, it appears more things happened than we thought is basically what we're saying. So much so that now that there's been data exfilled, and probably they're using that exfiltrated data and those credentials, Chip. They've gained access now to source code repositories, but of course, no evidence the Microsoft hosted customer facing systems have been compromised, which is where you come in, Chip. And by the way, have you all seen and read any, stuff on this out there? You're familiar with what's going on here? Yes, no? Maybe Michelle, you can be my eyes on the yes or no's in chat, but I'm going to keep focused here. So then, Chip, I'm still at Right of Boom, and I see stuff text start flourishing in from you, literally on Thursday on your plane ride home. And so I created a little bit of a timeline. You're not going to be able to read this per se, but I'm going to allow Chip to go into each of the details of this timeline. But as you can see, it's packed full of information in a very short period of time. And so, Chip, what I did then was decipher down like each kind of thing that you started to encounter. So let's start off with the beginnings of, you're on your way back, I believe, from Right of Boom on Thursday. Talk to us a little about what started to happen.
Yeah, Thursday I was still at Right of Boom.
Okay.
I flew back Friday morning. Thursday, I started hearing what I would call just sort of background noise, not stuff that's atypical for me to hear. People say, hey, just so you know, we're getting a lot of calls about this, that, or the other thing. And by the way, a lot of calls to us, out of 900 partners, if we have 20 people call about something that is similar, we consider that a lot of calls. So that's what was going on Thursday afternoon. And so my awareness was raised up a little bit. I wasn't too worked up about it because it seemed like, generally speaking, it wouldn't raise to the level of me needing to get involved from any kind of an analysis or interest perspective. Friday morning, that volume was increasing, and partners were calling us, asking about increases in activity that they were seeing. And then, and honestly, on Thursday, Andrew, I was also pretty focused on just getting through doing my presentation at Right of Boom. You know how it goes when when you spent 6 months, a few weeks putting together a presentation, and first time you give it, you don't know how it's going to go. So, you get pretty focused on that.
But you did spend over the course of time, it was about 6 months preparation from beginning to end.
No, that's what you guys expected us to do. But if you knew what we really did was, we waited until about, I don't know, mid-December to get started on it, and just got there to the deadlines. So
it's the college cramming is what you're telling me you did.
Well, I mean, there's only so much time in a day, right? You got to wait until things are hyper important. Many thanks to Michelle, by the way, for actually cleaning up. If you'd have seen the original deck that she put together before it got into the session format, it was actually absolutely beautiful. I should send it to you.
Nice.
Okay.
We may see it in another iteration.
Chip, there's this you mentioned if we hear from 20 partners of similar sets, I think I've learned this term recently, and it's something called in fractal math, similar sets, that you start to your ears start to go up, right?
Mm-hmm.
are correlative.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah. Bring us
So
up.
Friday morning, Microsoft acknowledges that this Midnight Blizzard attack is A, ongoing, B, source code has been breached. And in other articles I read, they said source code and other secrets, which were not specified. They did discuss specifically in other parts of their blog and picked up in other articles that there were specific customers that they were communicating with because there were specific secrets between Microsoft and those customers that were stolen either directly from accounts that were compromised via SharePoint or picked up through emails and then downloaded. So this was the bottom line. This is a whole lot worse than Microsoft originally made it out to be. And there were indications that Midnight Blizzard had picked up the intensity of its probing of Microsoft assets worldwide. So now those two things come together in my head. The fact that we've got, I've got this little buzz from Thursday afternoon going on that's increasing on Friday with our partners, and then I read this article. So I literally read the article as I'm in the taxi on the way to the airport, and I'm immediately, hitting Leron and other guys on our team and saying, "Hey, what are we really seeing here?" So I spent the flight back on crappy internet on American Airlines. If anybody flies American, they use, I don't remember who they use, not Dish Network, one of the other ones.
It's world-class ISDN chip. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's literally got a cable coming out of the back of the airplane. So what we were seeing was what I saw initially was an absolutely massive increase, 10x increase in data flow on our platform. And I thought to myself that, I think I texted to you and Jim, Andrew, that's what I was seeing. And, I was going to need to do further analysis to get to the bottom of that. It turns out that a significant jump in the 10x was coming from a new endpoint that we had implemented about almost a month ago now, 3 weeks ago at that point. And we were gradually adding that new endpoint to more and more partners to collect data on behalf of their customers. And that was specifically looking for new data or additional data on non-interactive sign-ins. We wound up filtering all that data out on Friday, so it was causing less noise. Anything that's a 10x jump is a problem for partners, and we filtered that back out so we can tame it down a little bit. But what I came away with is we still had a normalized over baseline between a 50% or 100% fluctuation depending upon the day of the week on data specifically around password sprays, brute forces, and non-interactive sign-ins that we identify through the terminology of claim satisfied by the token, meaning that there's already been access provided, there's a token that's provided, and there's been no requirement for someone to log in, use MFA, so on and so forth. So that was still significant. And, we put together a bulletin to our partners to that effect on Friday and got that out and just recommended that folks really should, make sure that their respond rules are tuned and that they're looking for this stuff. It did have one significant impact on one of the baseline respond templates that was created by Ben, who now works for us, back when he was working for an MSP. And that is the multiple failed login attempts. If there are enough of them in sequence that would trigger the respond rule, and then most people were choosing to lock out the customer and change tokens. The incidence of those getting triggered went way up because we had a significant increase in multiple account login failures or account locks and account lockouts. That was happening because there's definitely an increase in pressure on those specific events. And I'm going to get through a few things, and I'll get to your raised hand in a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, not to interrupt. We had a couple people ask if we can make it full screen. I'm not sure if they can see the slides.
Oh, yeah, of course. 1 second, 1 second.
Bottom
Sure.
right, Andy. Keep going. There you go.
I was laughing when you said about MFA because the articles, if you guys go out there and read, Microsoft did not put MFA on the compromised accounts. Did you read that, Chip?
Yes, I did. It's still. I don't even know how to react to that. Like, that's just. Yeah, look, Andrew, one of the articles I sent you, I know you know this, but I'll make the point for the team or for the group that one of the researchers in the article made the statement, it's time we all recognize that Microsoft is a national security threat. Crazy, crazy statement. Anyway, let's just get back to the timeline. So as I said, we filtered out what I would call the novel increase in data, and we're working to refine that because there is very interesting information there, but we want to refine it further before we pass it through to everyone. But still saw this increase in password spray and brute force attacks that negatively impacted a lot of people who use that default rule that Ben created, which made a ton of sense exactly as it was, before last week. We added a version 2 of that rule. I think Jesse on our support team created a version 2 of that rule, and he added in a couple secondary indicators of compromise that should be used along with that rule in order to tame it down and reduce the possibility of false positives. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. So what do you got next in here in your timeline?
Sure.
Okay, so this is back to filtering out, the what I would call the extra overflow of data that there's no way we could attribute it to normal increased hacking. It was just a massive increase in a particular kind of activity that we hadn't seen before, but we hadn't seen it before because we weren't probing for it in the same way. So we normalized off of that. And I think this is probably the end of where we're at with the timeline, or I'm not really sure how far you went with what I sent you, but the what we're seeing now is pretty much a new normal in terms of the volume of data that's coming across, particularly around password sprays and brute forces, which is again why we modified that respond rule. There's no reason to expect it won't be a new normal. I put together a separate document for our support team to answer a question that we got a lot on starting Monday morning, which was this Russia? And the answer to that question is it's really actually impossible for us, for SaaS Alerts as a company. We're way too small, to be candid, and nor do we have the kind of resources that a state level actor has. It's very difficult for us to confidently say that this was Midnight Blizzard that we saw in the data, or it was Russia that we saw in the data. And that's because it's really trivial, as you all know, to modify or to masquerade the origin of where you're doing anything on the internet. You can use a VPN and pretend that you're coming from Uzbekistan if you feel like it, and that's really increased in use over the last 3 years. To the point where I wouldn't say geolocation data is useless, but it's nowhere near the indicator that it used to be of whether something is safe or not. And it's usually masqueraded in such a way, as we've talked about in other contexts, that the person who's the attacker is intentionally impersonating the geolocation from which your accounts should be from. So, it's not a super helpful indicator anymore.
Yeah.
Liron did an analysis, Liron specifically, of the geolocation data, and what we came back with is that all of the data among these 3 fields that we were seeing coming across were pretty much sampled in the same way. About 1/3 US, 1/3 China, and the other 2/3 made up by 5 or 6 different countries, Russia among them. And there was an increase in the data volume from Russia, about 5%, if I remember correctly. There was about a 10% increase in what came from China. So what are the conclusions you can draw from that? I mean, we can hypothesize that, sure, if this was Midnight Blizzard that we were seeing in our data, then they were being smart and deciding to bounce a lot of it off China because everybody wants to blame China for stuff anyway. So let's just go right ahead and do that. That's one conclusion you could come to. Germany popped up in the list of that last third, which, we've seen that happen more and more, that Western European countries show up as at least masquerading, or they show up as the origin, but we don't know if they truly are the origin. So, we definitely did see those increases. We think this is the new normal. There's no way that we can confidently say, yes, this was absolutely Midnight Blizzard and attacks originating in Russia. We can't say that with the amount of data that we ingest and with the tools that we have. We just aren't a large enough data set to say that. So with all that said, people can reach their own conclusions based upon the timing of Microsoft's article. We had seen a gradual increase over the course of all of last week. It wasn't just limited to last Thursday and Friday. That's just when we hit a new peak. So, yeah.
Chip, knowing that, IPs are often obfuscated, and what's the recommendation that you're suggesting now in respond rules, which we're going to get into shortly?
Yeah.
Different behaviors, etc.
There's a couple things. The first is it still is important to look at geolocation and respond rules, because it's not uncommon to see the IP address change, and even if it's changing, state to state in the US very, very quickly, that can be an indicator that a token hack has been used. We saw lots of it in 2023. Again, I think we've spoken about this on other calls. We saw the most predominant country that we saw for outside approved location access through a good chunk of 2023 was Nigeria. And whenever we saw Nigeria, we got, you could almost predict that within 5 or 10 minutes of seeing that Nigerian OAL, you were going to see a fresh login from a fresh device, identified either because it's not a device in Unify, or it was a new device agent in the event information that is coming from inside the US, inside an approved location. So there's indicator number one that the account actually got compromised, probably by a session steal. Could have been anything, but probably by a session steal. The next thing that you always see is one or the other of modifying email inbox rules, making changes to MFA, which on our system looks like a new MFA, setup, or requesting additional permissions. So adding in the additional IOCs, those additional indicators of compromise, to your respond rules. And remember that, one of the really nice things about respond is you can make compound rules with filters on each statement. So that lets you get super granular on how you're evaluating the activity of a user's account. It literally is user behavior analysis to give you the higher degree of confidence that you've got a hack.
Yeah, very good. I know we wanted to talk a little about these Fortify templates. I'm going to pause here. Did you want to be able to show this, or have Liron kind of walk thlirough this stuff?
Yeah, I think what we'll do, so we showed Fortify in an earlier iteration about a month ago. Liron, if you want to share and I'll navigate, if that works for you, then we can, because I'm only asking you to do that, Liron, because I can't share a screen, run a mouse, and talk at the same time. I'm just too old for that.
I'm too technically challenged to share my screen. My operating system won't let me share my screen. So,
Okay.
There's
All right,
somebody.
give me a second. So I suppose the question for everybody is it worth going through where Fortify is now that we are pretty close. When I say pretty close, I mean within a couple of releases. See, I'm trying to talk and do two other things at the same time. Within a couple of releases, and we release usually twice a week or more. Is it worth going through where we're at, getting some feedback from everybody? Does everybody's memory from a month ago, is that sufficient? You know, where are we at with that? And somebody needs to be my eyes because I'm not even looking at Zoom anymore.
I was gonna say, Chip, do you want me to share?
Amy, yeah, absolutely.
Amanda, but yeah,
Oh, Amanda, sorry.
it's okay.
Yeah, that's even better.
And I guess just quick show of hands, would it be helpful for Chip to kind of do a refresher and bring everybody up to speed? You know, even though like you said it came out a while ago, or you know, we first introduced it. If you would that be helpful? Yes, no. In chat.
Yeah, I'm not hearing much there.
Here they come.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well,
Roman
while
says-
they're coming in. So
Yeah.
Anne, I pushed off a question from you earlier. Do you want to get that on the table?
Yeah, I just put it in chat, but I was wondering this increased activity that you said you saw and kind of spiked and now has become the new normal. Did you see that sort of distributed across all accounts, or did you see pockets of even higher increased activity? Like how evenly distributed was this activity?
So the way I was analyzing data it looked very evenly distributed to me, but that's because I was not looking for pockets. I was looking at the macro level and
Okay.
just wanted to see based upon event types, you know, what was the delta specifically around indicators of a brute force and password spray or session hijack. I wanted to see what the delta was on those three things, and that's really all I was looking for.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's just review templates real quickly. So this is the template view at the dashboard level. Amy, can you go to the search?
Amanda.
Amanda, God, I did it again. Sorry, Amanda. And just type in basic. Okay, and let's edit this template. So this is a template I created earlier this week in doing some debugging. And it's just out there to kind of show how this is going to function. We're planning to build a group of templates that will provide everybody around the different licensing levels to make it, you know, really kind of drop dead easy for what can be applied based upon the licensing structure of your customer. But the way templates will function is it will allow you to run down the left-hand column and move elements either over to the selected recommended actions for this template, or you can also delete them and move them back across. We follow a lot of the other constructs that we use in Fortify today. There are info buttons that will tell you more about what this is going to do. Amy, you can hover over any one of those infos and select it. And it's going to give you, you know, sometimes a very long description of what policy is being applied here, and it's also going to review specifically what user impact is. We're going to be adding to this, you know, you see the little CIS badge at the top. We're going to be badging these where appropriate with CIS, and I got browbeaten by Andy Rowe at Write a Boom into promising that we will also put in NIST badges here. So that's probably not going to be there for the first launch of Fortify, but I promised to do it, so we'll do it. So it's really a pretty simple process if you want to close that one, Amanda. And just click on the more section under licenses. So each element that you see here will have minimum license that's required in order to apply. Again, the whole point that you guys gave us in terms of feedback around templates was, hey, we want to build these sets based upon the properties of the tenant that we're building for. You know, I know a lot of our MSP customers like to run their businesses where they say, look, we insist everyone is a minimum of a business premium or an E3. I don't think anybody's selling a minimum of an E5, but we have those variations out here. And then there are other people that'll sell anything they can. whatever they can talk their tenant into. So we just want to help make this easier so that you can license these very, very quickly, and or select by licensing quickly. And then you can save, obviously, the template. You can come back in and modify it to your heart's content. You can mark it as a draft and build off other ones. Like I said, there will be pretty quickly after we release this, we'll build a series of templates. Amanda, can you go back to the very, very front? So
Sure.
community templates. I want to go ahead, Andy.
So just your last point, that just to confirm for everybody. So Roman asked, sorry if I missed it. Is this available now or coming soon?
Coming soon, Roman. We expect this in we're about probably 2 or 3 release cycles, and we release about twice a week. So it's coming soon. There are some bugs. I found some, others have found some. We've already come up with some good ideas on how to even improve it before we release it. But this is coming quite soon. And one of the other reasons I'm bringing this up is because at least 2 people that are on this call were in our booth jumping up and down and saying, when are we getting templates? When are we getting templates? So I thought it was worth putting this out here. So community templates is a feature that won't be in the first release. It's our intention to allow you guys to share templates back and forth amongst one another. If you choose, you certainly don't have to. Any templates that we build, that's where we will put them. So that will be coming out next. So that's really it. So we can take any other questions on it. It's not overly complicated. It looks a lot like the rest of Fortify, but we do think it's going to make Fortify an even more productive tool in that you can select a template, create a template, select a template, and apply it to all of your tenants that match that desired set of features with a couple of clicks. Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Kidding, man.
Nice, Andrew.
So Chip, what's the Fortify adoption been like? Like, from your side, and gosh, any feedback from partners would be great too. But what are you guys seeing?
It's been really high. We actually track that number week to week. Liron is the person who is responsible for tracking it and reporting it, so he could probably tell you exactly what it is faster than I have. But it's been adopted. I think as quicker than Respond, way faster than Unify. Yeah, there's high acceptance. LB, feel free to share the number if you want to.
It's about 500 or 50%, just above 50% of our partners have Fortify.
And Liron, I don't know if you've done any of this correlation or if it's possible, but is there any correlation between alerts being reduced by Fortify rules being in place, or what I'm saying, Fortify, best practices of a secure score that you're seeing versus the other 50% not having it in place?
Andrew, you just created a 3-day project for me, is what you just did. I think the interesting analysis to do there would be, like, we need a measure of what we perceive as threats or bad activity. So
Right.
outside approved location is a simple example. So let's compare our top 20% Fortify scores, look at their number of outside approved locations versus, say, something like an average, and to try to determine if there's an improvement there.
Yeah, like could it be, not to give you a 3-day project, but could you look at the top maybe 5 things, whether it's, what are the most common things that we're seeing from SaaS alerts, again, whether it's token reuse, whether it's password sprays, whether it's, what I mean? And then with these rules in place, what's the efficacy between the different tenants?
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
That would be really fascinating.
One other element I failed to point out when Amanda was sharing her screen, the Fortify templates dashboard incorporates the partner average score and then a comparison to all other partner average scores across the platform. So we have introduced that concept as well, so you can kind of gauge yourself against your peers.
That's really cool. Let's see what we got in chat. Anybody, let's see. Anybody having some good luck with Fortify? I shouldn't say luck, probably a little trivial, but like get results of since they've implemented it, what anything you'd like to share? Not all at once, of course. Well, it's pretty cool that 50%, that's pretty fantastically run that you guys have had basically half of the customer base thus far. I don't think we've tried it out yet. Travis, if I could not put you on the spot, put you on the spot, any particular reason why not? Is it bandwidth internally in your org? Is it you didn't realize it was easy to turn on? Is it like, hey, wow, there's a KB here, or a way I can attend an office hour and figure it out easily? Like, just curious if there's from
Looks like you just haven't had a chance yet.
yeah, I mean, it could be that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. What kind of time frame, Chip and or Leron, does so for someone like Travis, does he need to set aside to implement something like Fortify?
I'd actually love to have someone else on the call, one of our partners who uses Fortify, to answer that question, because I think you guys could answer it better than we can. You know, my estimate, having played around with the secure score elements in Microsoft's environment, and realizing that every time I wanted to apply a recommendation, I had to read an article, sometimes read articles that were, you know, sub URLs in the main article, go back, change settings, you know, go back and change some more settings. You know, as a first time user navigating the recommendations by Microsoft, you're going to spend not less than 30 minutes applying a single recommendation for a single tenant. And the fact that we're able to cook that down to that single recommendation across all tenants at once. I mean, you may still need to read the article from Microsoft, or at least read through the description that we provide. But the fact that you can, look, we estimated that for a mid-size MSP, Fortify is going to save you thousands of hours a year versus doing it one tenant at a time, one policy at a time. So Enrique's got his hand up, so I think he wants to chime in and answer that question.
Yes, well, going back to time saved, I wouldn't even go that far in advance to time saved, applying them. For Fortify, we're really not doing anything, and except the defaults that Microsoft had. And because we're a new MSP, small, hadn't had the time to go dig in and read, and you guys put this on the table for us, and we even won a prize.
That's true. You did. You guys, you won the most improved score for a single tenant, if I remember correctly, from like
74.
Yeah, like from 5% to 74%.
Curious, Nick, do you mind sharing? You said it's been incredible. Have you seen differences in alerts, decrease in alerts? Anything you can share with us since, you know, implementing?
I don't think there was a drop in alerts, but just the overall ease of just rolling out Fortify to all of our clients. You know, it just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, you know, bringing everybody's clients scores from like 25% up to like 70, 80%. It's huge, and clients seem to like numbers a lot, so that goes a long way. But yeah, I can't correlate any data as to like alerts dropping or not. I'd imagine though, we have the legacy auth conditional access policy put into place. I imagine that has to account for something, you know. I'm sure somebody somewhere is trying to bypass MFA by using legacy auth somewhere.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is, you know, and what's really, I think eventually, Chip, would be really interesting with the amount of folks that you have implementing it. Then you can use it in sales, like, hey, you know, this size customer in this type of industry, you know, let's just say legal, you know, Mr. Customer, this is what the standard best practices in legal are for secure score, you're here, right? Relative to your peers,
Yeah.
right? Very powerful when you guys, if and when you guys can start producing that, you know.
I actually wanted to ask Nick, and Nick, if you could pop back on camera for a second, I have a question for you related to that. So you've increased your scores, you said from an average like 25 up to 75 or 80. Has Fortify helped you convince any customers based upon the reports that we give you about where the scores can go? You know what? It's time for us to step up to a business premium or an E3. Like, has it been helpful in those conversations when you're demonstrating to someone, look, you're all the way down here. I can get you there, but I could love to get you here. Has that helped?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's no secret you're locked behind, certain security policies by going from standard to premium. And I can outline that and show that to clients, easily just by showing them this. And, time's money. And I use that as an argument. I say, I can roll out Fortify policies for clients in 15 minutes versus hours worth of work to secure you. That'd be billable on their end, So I'm like, if you just increase your licensing and adopt SaaS alerts, we'll roll this out for you for free.
Yeah, I mean, how about just in general, like adopt it, maybe someone was pushing back on MFA, Nick, something as simple as that. Have you been able to show them, hey, look, again, here's your peers. This is where you are.
Usually during a QBR, I'll go over secure score and I'll show their average, you know how in Microsoft 365, it'll show you like what your secure score is versus other average organizations. I use that. And their eyes drop usually when they're like, well, we're at 25% and the average is at 40% or something. We want to be higher than that. So I'm like, well, if I can double that, would you adopt SaaS alerts or, let me do what I got to do to, secure your environment? And they usually jump right on.
Right.
Nick,
Yeah.
were you on the call 2 weeks ago? This call?
I feel like I was. I try to be on every single one of them, but sometimes workload doesn't let me.
Okay. Amanda took us through a new report that I don't think is on production yet, but it'll be even more helpful for you in showing your customers and QBRs the delta in their secure score over time, including if there's any regressions in it because of either changes in Microsoft policy or and anything that occurred that pulls it up or down. But we're storing the data, unlike event data, we're storing the data forever, really indefinitely for secure scores. And you're going to be able to give them a history that goes out over years if you want, of how, your use of the product has impacted it. And we'll also reveal if you have a co-managed tenant, if one of their admins goes in and removes a policy that you put in place through Fortify, it's going to show up in that report.
That's really cool, Chip. Really good stuff you guys are doing. Let's see, Chad. Sorry, I'm just reading here. Little Chad's things. Yeah, I think what Chad's saying there, Chip, as you add the other things like you're considering adding NIST, I think eventually we'll be able to get there via framework.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree with Chad's comments. This is something Leron and I have talked about since before Fortify was even put out in its initial wireframing. We would love to be, if not the company, one of the companies that comes up with an independent secure score. It's a lot of work, and we've talked quite a bit about it. The way we would approach it would be through partnerships like the one I spoke about earlier in this call, taking security information from other apps. It's one thing to have your Microsoft Secure Score set up in a particular way because of configuration, but we also see what goes on in Salesforce and what goes on in Slack and other products. So, but I mean, I got to be honest with you guys, there's no way we're getting there in 2024. It's a huge, huge task for us to tackle that and try and come up with something that is both authoritatively accurate and broad enough that that at least that I'd want to put my name on it and say, okay, guys, this is actually a new standard that can really help your business. It's a lot of work.
That's part of my wanting to do integrations or partnerships with SaaS alerts is part of my selfish desire to have something like that, where you're pulling all these tools that are siloed together to get one score, so you can understand endpoint, network, you know, kind of across the board.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't even have to be you that's doing the work. A bunch of these companies could go to CIS and say, hey, none of these scores are weighted. Like none of the controls and subcontrols are actually weighted. You could actually have like a true assessment that gives a really easy to digest score. I mean, when you run the Syscat tool, you'll get, well, however many settings, 500 settings, but it doesn't tell you which ones are the most important, which ones are not that big of a deal, which is kind of where I think it should go.
Sounds like a side hustle, Chad.
Does.
I like the idea of you guys doing a lot of this stuff and then me benefiting from it. That sounds better.
Look at Leron. His head is about to spin off his neck.
And Chad, we've definitely thought about it. And the hard part is when you give that singular number, you have to be able, you're going to have some customer who's going to say like, break that number down for me, right? And you're going to have to take these 18 different tools and walk them through how you end up with that singular score. So yeah, we've definitely talked about it, right?
You can extrapolate the report into a huge thing and say, hey, if you want to go through it, let's go through it. But just the zones, I think, would be a score, a number, stoplight, you know, whatever is easy to digest at a glance. So you can have just like a 3-page report and say, your network's a yellow. This is why. Here's the 3 biggest issues. This is what we should do, you know, deal with day one. And then for M365, hey, I can implement this with a tool. We can fix this tomorrow. Like I can automate this for you, you know.
Would be interesting at least, Chip, to bring on Phyllis to talk about, you know, best practice configuration of M365 with the group and what the possibilities.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we've had Phyllis on a couple of times. You know, Phyllis from CIS, I think is who you mean.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we can always entertain having Phyllis on again.
You know, they've got, you know, they're a nonprofit, Chad, so maybe they can help do some of the work, right? That's their remit, right? To help with these types of things. They're funded heavily by the US government to you know, put that money in good places. So
but it may fit into one they've already started.
Yeah, they have the whole Cloud Security Alliance piece now in Controls 8. So it'd be worth having a conversation with her. I'll ask her if she'll come on and kind of beat it up with us.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Also, last piece that goes with this, right, would be browser, right? So, you know, best, you know, Syscat settings, if they have them. I haven't checked on Chrome and things of that nature.
I've talked Chip already. I can't say anything, but there's other people that I've brought up to Chip with ideas of how some of those things could be brought together with different third parties that then
that we both really
go
like.
Insane with building anything else. He can focus on what he's used to work.
Yeah.
All right.
We love those guys, Chad.
All right, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Chip, we'll see you on the cyber call Monday, and make it a great day, everybody.
Thanks. Everyone.
Bye. Thank you all.